This is episode 670 of the Rio Grande Foundation's Tipping Point, New Mexico. I'm Paul Gessing, president of the Rio Grande Foundation, New Mexico's free market think tank. You can find out more about the foundation at riograndefoundation.org. I am pleased to have Carol Wight of the New Mexico Restaurant Association, the executive director of that organization, join me. So welcome to Tipping Point, New Mexico, Carol.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Yeah, and of course, you are a regular here on the show. And Merry Christmas. It is, as we record this, the 23rd. So Christmas Eve here as we record this. And we'll be talking about some issues the Restaurant Association has going on with the City of Albuquerque, the legislative session, the condition of the industry in the state of New Mexico. But first and foremost, let me wish you an early Merry Christmas and talk about your industry in the holidays. Obviously, a lot of people make their own Christmas fixins, but an increasing popular, I imagine, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it does seem like more people over the holidays tend to go to their favorite restaurants and have certain dishes as well.
Yeah, more and more restaurants are opening up for the holidays. Just people, if you're a couple or single, you may not want to cook for yourself. And then sometimes you don't want to cook for a whole family. I'm always one to make a reservation rather than cooking, cleaning, and doing dishes.
Yeah, totally understand. Especially, if families are smaller these days, not as many kids, etc. So increasingly common. I've done Thanksgiving once at a restaurant. It was one of the casino restaurants, and had a fabulous turkey there. We normally do one meal over the Christmas holiday at home, and then do something at a restaurant because my wife's view is one meal, one major meal over the holidays.
One is enough.
Yeah. So we've definitely participated in the restaurant economy over the holidays, and I'm sure there's mixed blessings there. I'm sure that most restaurants hook up their employees a little more if they're working over the holidays, but
you usually have to pay time and a half at least
yeah.
to get them to come in. And then most people, you give them a morning shift, they have the afternoon shift off. So it's not a huge burden for employees necessarily. And it is, with everybody out shopping, people are, just staying out and eating out. So it's a busy, busy time of the year for restaurants, which is good. We like it.
Yeah. Well, whatever your meal of choice is over the holidays, Merry Christmas to our listeners and everybody out watching or however they're consuming this particular episode. But let's get started. We're an issues-based show here at Tipping Point, New Mexico. Talk just briefly about the New Mexico Restaurant Association, restaurants as an industry in New Mexico. Any important facts you want to share with us?
As much as I do believe restaurants are starting to come out of kind of that pandemic and inflationary time, we're still struggling. I saw some statistics from the Bureau of Labor Statistics the other day that said that restaurants basically there has been no growth in restaurants in New Mexico since 2019. So we've had about the same, plus or minus 50 restaurants in the state of New Mexico. We've had the same number of restaurants since 2019. That's not good. We should have growth, and unfortunately, our menu prices are getting higher because they have to because of inflation, and so the government's getting more money. It looks like we're growing, but we're really not in the number of locations.
Yeah, and New Mexico, as is typically the case with other New Mexico policies, not a particularly friendly place for restaurants as an industry. We have the gross receipts tax and a disparity even there with grocery stores getting an advantage on taxes, restaurants not so much. And then a lot of minimum wage rates in our major cities that are well above the statewide average, which is elevated above the national average. So, anything you want to share about those, obviously, important issues to your industry.
Well, as far as minimum wage goes, most of our folks are paying way above minimum wage, the state minimum wage. But we're also looking at the state coming up with a new minimum wage, in which case, you know, we're so labor heavy in restaurants that it really affects the restaurant industry, and especially the small businesses. The larger businesses can kind of take these hits that the legislature throws at them, but the small businesses just can't. It's hard for them to stay up with the regulations, and then the money involved in all of these unfunded mandates is very difficult for them to come up with.
Yeah, now just to put our cards on the table here, the national minimum wage is $7.25 per hour. I can't imagine very many people out there in the entire country are making seven and a quarter an hour. New Mexico's rate is $12 per hour at the state level, but a lot of other jurisdictions have higher wages, including the city of Albuquerque. And your organization recently has been in kind of a tete-a-tete, if you will, with the city of Albuquerque over some of the minimum wage issues. Can you talk about how that situation developed and what's at hand there?
So it's a little complicated, but servers make a lower wage than minimum wage because they get most of their money from tips. Just know that servers make easily $20 to $30 an hour in tips, and then their wages are on top of that. So in the city of Albuquerque, they've been miscalculating the server wage since the pandemic. And basically, what they've been doing is they've been using the city wage calculations of 60% of the minimum wage on the state wage rather than on the city wage. It's complicated, but therefore the city server wage has been at $7.20, where the state server wage is at $3. And so it's and it's a business model that we've used forever. It's, there's lots of folks that think it's not right, but we use that tip wage to really supplement our back of the house. And we're able to pay the back of the house, the dishwashers, the cooks, the folks that do the work behind the scenes. We're able to supplement them because they cannot participate in the tip wage. So that's kind of the situation that's happening right now, and we are at a impasse with the city. The city attorney did tell us that we were correct; they were miscalculating it, but the administration then said they were going to continue to miscalculate it because it benefited the servers.
So, just to be clear, the city is violating the law blatantly.
Right.
They've acknowledged they're violating the law. They're not going to do anything about it. Is there legal recourse, or is that not something your organization's inclined to undertake?
We've looked at it, and we're still looking at it. Finding a lawyer in this town that will go up against the city isn't easy, but we're getting there. So we're looking at it seriously.
Yeah, well, chalk that up as 1,001 things to disagree with Mayor Keller about, and just remember the rule of law. It only applies when certain people break the law, when others break the law, or government, heaven forbid, breaks the law. You're kind of SOL. We'll just throw out an acronym, and you can decide what that actually means. Any other aspect? And you've taken some heat at city council. I don't know about councilors themselves, but certainly I've read some of the articles about commentary at city council meetings and in the editorial, the editor pages of the Albuquerque Journal. People have said, "Oh, you're just horrible, grasping,
Greedy.
et cetera, greedy." Yes, the big restaurant is coming after those tip wages. Well, first and foremost, the law is the law, and I mean, people love to again manipulate that for their own interest. But secondly, talk about how there is an imbalance between the tipped people waiting the tables and the back of the house, the people cooking and doing whatever else.
Yeah. So again, most servers are making between $20 and $30 an hour in tips alone. And then they get their wages on top of that at the state. They make $3 an hour. And really, they don't count on that money. They're counting on their tips. They really like making tips. But the opposite to that is the back of the house, dishwashers, cooks, chefs, etc. They don't make as much. They make between $17 and $20 an hour. And because the server wage is so high in Albuquerque, we cannot give that money, the differential, to the cooks and folks in the back of the house. And it's a business model we've used forever. It keeps your restaurant tab down. If we change that model, restaurant gets to be more expensive, and some would say, well, with the tip, it's more expensive anyway, and it is. But trust me, it would be even more expensive if we didn't have that differential. But we don't like the huge differential. The state differential at $3 is good. The city differential at $7 is more difficult. Again, there's $4 we can't give to the back of the house to keep those folks happy and well paid.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I will editorialize here and say that tipping. A lot of people do 20%. I've seen places where they say tip more than that. In Albuquerque, if you're inclined, you can understand and realize that a lot of these people are already making very high wages. So 15% would not be unreasonable in a lot of cases, simply because of the already existing disparity in the way that the city of Albuquerque enforces those laws. So, not saying people should cut their tips.
Well, and the other thing, I mean, there is some what they're calling tip fatigue, because everybody's turning screens around to you and making you tip more. Really, tipping is for servers who are serving you at a table. This is not for counter service. And so do what you want with that counter service. But to me, a tip, if somebody is very good, they get 20%. If they're better than that, they get more than that. If they're worse than that, they get less than that. It is a merit system, and that's what it was built to be, and that's what it still should be.
Yeah. I am of the opinion that if you are standing while you're being asked for a tip, chances are I'm not going to deliver the tip for you, but people can enforce that or choose their own path with that. Well, okay, so legal action may be happening, but may not be happening regarding the city of Albuquerque. Obviously, we have an election for mayor. That is the next kind of big election. I don't think it takes this issue to be concerned about the approach that Mayor Keller's taken on a variety of issues, but we'll just add this as more fuel to that fire. So let's move on to state and state policies. And of course, here we are recording this over the holidays. It's always one of those things in New Mexico where you go from the election to the holidays. So you have really, really busy, everybody's excited and very involved in politics, to then a few weeks of relative tranquility, and then we're back at it, ready to go for the legislative session. So I know you and I were both already dreading and preparing for the upcoming 2025 legislative session. 60 days of quote unquote fun and excitement up there in Santa Fe. You're kind of the first organizing person when it comes to the coalition leader, we'll say, of the paid family and medical leave issue and trying to fight against that. Just talk about the issue itself, where we've been, and kind of where you see things going.
Yeah, so paid family and medical leave would be the biggest tax increase on New Mexicans, I think, ever. And as you know, the state has more money than God, and the citizens and the businesses are not doing well. So putting this tax on, and what it would be is you would get up to 12 weeks of paid leave, but it's an insurance program. I should say scheme. It's an insurance scheme put together by the state where employees and employers put into this, and then people who are, having children or anybody that's sick in your family or your broader family, those that you consider family, those that are not even considered family. If anybody's sick you can take 12 weeks off to take care of them. You do get paid at a lower rate than you're paid for, let's just say in work, but you get the time off. So this is a bad idea. It was shown in the last two fiscal impact reports, those are reports done by the legislature, that it would be broke within 3 years. And we've been talking to some insurance companies in the interim, and they think that, so it's basically $9 per hour, because 4% comes from the employer, 5% comes from the employee, and this amount is not enough. It would take something like $50 to pay for this program. We just don't have any large companies in New Mexico, even though the state would be paying into it, and so would the cities and counties. It's still going to be something that's not going to be tenable, right? It's unsustainable. We just don't have the number of employees in the state making enough money to make this work. So we've got a coalition of 20 to 30 business organizations, including associations and chambers of commerce. And we are meeting every other week and trying to decide what we can do to stave this off. We did it last year by one vote. We think we can do it this year. We're at least hopeful that we will get a better bill, one that's more sustainable.
Yeah. Well, we should talk. Obviously the June primary was one where some of the Democrats who were willing to stand up against paid family leave lost their races, so the Democratic Party moved to the left. The election in November didn't really see much in the way of change. One Republican pickup in each house, not enough to kind of theoretically make up for the changes in the primaries. Now we have Eliseo Alcon leaving due to health reasons. We'll see who takes his place. Alcon was somebody who supported the paid family leave issue. We'll see if Harry Garcia, who was an opponent of that.
No, Harry was with us.
Yeah, Harry was opponent of the bill.
Of the bill, yes.
So that'll be interesting to see if the governor, because there's two counties that have to put forth people. I don't know what that situation's like. It's very complicated and arcane, but Harry Garcia could make a difference. And I'm sure the governor's thinking in her back of her head, do I want to put somebody up there who may not support me? But she may not have a choice if both counties go with Harry Garcia. So a lot of maneuvering, I'm sure, behind the scenes. Obviously, you're looking kind of at the same broad parameters of the really horrific bills that have been put forth in the last few sessions. It's not that, however, restaurants or restaurant owners are implacably opposed to paid family leave. It would be awesome if the governor said, we've got all this oil and gas money. We could give a tax credit to businesses, restaurants, and others to support this kind of policy. I know that's not going to happen, but talk about kind of broadly this issue as opposed to, the way what we've seen so far in Santa Fe.
Well, so for one thing, we're not even sure that the governor supports what was out there. She never came down for it. She did allow it to be on her call last year, but she never, from what we know, she wasn't the one pushing it from behind. It was actually the Biden administration that was pushing this. So there's also that dynamic that the Biden administration isn't going to be there any longer to push this.
Okay.
Is that something that we can look forward to? I don't know. There will be other broader folks on a national level that will be pushing it, but and that's kind of the problem, is they're pushing a national fix on this small state that does not have much population. And then most of our population is retired and or headed for retirement. And this just doesn't work in this state. And is that the kind of broadness you're talking about? I mean, the push for this is coming from somewhere else. The law itself was written, outside of the state and just brought in here, and they have done nothing to change it. So the interesting thing is we do have a couple of factions right now at the legislature. We have some legislators that agree with us on a few points, that we believe this shouldn't be held at the Workforce Solutions Department, that it should be an insurance company that runs this, and they are going to proffer a alternative to the law that has been proffered up to this point. And we'll see if they have any luck with that. I think we have not seen it. I can't tell you if it's a better bill or not, but it sounds like it might be.
Well, I never thought I would call you the wide-eyed optimist, but in terms of especially the governor, I would be shocked and amazed if Michelle Lujan Grisham had anything but full-throated support for this. Maybe it's 6 years of everything she's done to destroy New Mexico, but those are my words, not yours. So I will, for the record, let the record show that Carol Wight is an optimist about Michelle Lujan Grisham in the last 2 years of this.
Well, and what makes me an optimist is who she hired for economic development. I mean, she did hire Rob Black, and I will tell you that he was one of the biggest opponents of that paid medical leave bill. And so I'm hoping that he can have some influence on this. I mean, he went, from all ends of the country to look at different kinds of medical leave. He came back, he said, this is the better one. And I believe it was one from Connecticut. And so hopefully somebody's listening to him and somebody will put up a bill. And also the other thing is that the more bills that are out there, the more confusion there is, the less likelihood there is of anything passing. So
we'll briefly talk about Rob, because he wasn't just, he was the head of the New Mexico Chamber, formerly ACI, but Rob is, in my estimation, I said this at the time, that of the people that we could envision at the Rio Grande Foundation for Economic Development Secretary under this governor, the Venn diagram is probably one person deep, and it probably is Rob Black, because I can't imagine the governor putting anybody more knowledgeable and, while he is in many ways a moderate compared to the Rio Grande Foundation, he is somebody who obviously understands business in New Mexico, what they need, what their challenges are, and he hopefully will have the governor's ear and be able to, by extension, have the legislature's ears when it comes to some of these issues, but starting with paid family leave.
That's my hope as well. I mean, Rob, again, he was probably the most knowledgeable person I know on paid family and medical leave. In the last 2 years, he really educated himself and brought to the legislators, here's the things that you can do to make this a decent proposal. Mm-hmm. They wouldn't do it. I think now they feel like they have to do it. I heard a rumor the other day.
Oh,
you're going to like
rumors.
this. Yeah. Basically, the Democrats feel like if they don't pass paid family and medical leave this year, they're going to lose the governorship.
Okay.
Which is interesting, because I don't think they're thinking correctly. Because because they're not telling people that this is a tax. When people start having this tax taken out of their paycheck, It's going to, all of a sudden, they're going to be like, wait a minute, you told us that was going to be free. You told us the state was paying for that. You told us my employer was paying for that. So I think they're missing the boat here. And again, it's the largest tax increase in New Mexico ever.
Well, since we've got you, why we can talk about that, the political aspect for a brief second. But I want to start on that note. There was a bit of a dust up between Governor Lujan Grisham, and I know crime isn't necessarily something you're obviously it's critical to everybody in the state. Uh, Restaurants, I'm sure, just like everybody else, want to have the streets safe and their customers to be able to come out and patronize them without having crime as an issue that they have to deal with. But the governor called the special session back in July. Specifically, the progressives pushed back against any real action on crime. The governor says she's going to bring that back, although I'm skeptical as to what potential impacts will be included in those bills. I don't think it's going to do much. But do you think there's some continued bad blood between the governor and the progressives in the legislature that might play to your and our favor? Or you think they'll patch things up and do whatever they want to do?
You know, that's the difference between Democrats and Republicans.
One of them, yes.
Yeah, because Republicans will hold a grudge forever, and Democrats will just keep moving forward, and that's the unfortunate thing. And it's interesting. Somebody told me that the governor's family actually experienced some crime, and so that's why she was hot on it. But I also think that she was worried that they would lose politically if they didn't act like they were doing something with crime. That didn't happen. I guess people in New Mexico aren't tired of the crime and they're fine with it. So, I don't know what to say, but I think they patch things up way easier than Republicans
that
do.
is a pretty accurate statement by my understanding and history of what I've seen in this state. So, another quick thing, of course. We have Democrats starting to come out and say that they are running for governor. This governor's done in 2 years, no matter what. There's been a history since New Mexico moved to the 4 years with an 8-year term limit on them, so 2 consecutive terms. We've had Gary Johnson, then we had Richardson, then we had Susana Martinez, then we had Michelle Lujan Grisham. Theoretically, if the past, whatever four governors are a guide, Republicans should be in line to have a real shot at the governorship. But we've had 2 prominent Democrats already making noise that they are going to run. Deb Haaland, Secretary of the Interior. Martin Heinrich, although whether he's going to run or not, I think is a little more up in the air. I think Deb Haaland is going to run. She has her incentive structure is very much to push her to run. I don't understand why Heinrich would leave his perch at the Energy Department to run, but
Well, especially with his latest, he got minority.
He was in line to be the minority, the ranking member, as they call it. And I'm not going to ask you to handicap that situation, but you brought up the idea that the Democrats fear that they may lose the governorship if they don't get this done. Are there Republicans, anybody out there that you're seeing that may be running, or are you feeling like, this is the 60-day session? The iron is not going to get any hotter in a 30-day session for them to pass paid family leave. This is the time, obviously, a Deb Haaland, God knows what she's going to do, or a Martin Heinrich, what he would do. But it does seem that the pendulum should swing back to the Republicans. So just kind of spitballing there. Anything you want to talk about relating to that?
Yeah, I do think that kind of balance is it's necessary in New Mexico. I mean, we've had no balance whatsoever for years, and we've not seen anything good happen in New Mexico. I can't think of one good thing that we've done that has increased our education or pocketbooks or anything. So, having said that, do I think we're in for a Republican governor for the next governor? I don't know. Some people think that New Mexico has just moved too far left, and there's no movement to the right. But then, I was a little bit encouraged when folks there were more Republicans registering last time than there were Democrats. So we'll see. I don't think it's possible right now. It depends on who the candidate is, and I think we've got to be very careful about picking that candidate. But we've also got to have some candidates, right?
Right.
We haven't had candidates, and nothing against Mark Ronchetti, but I think he ran a good race. But again, we've got to have some really spectacular candidates that can, move the New Mexico people from their, from where they are to Republican, because we're not going to win if we have the same, what do I want to say, election statistics that we have right now.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, there, paid family leave is definitely at the top of the agenda, I know, for both of us in this upcoming legislative session. But we were disappointed that the governor did not include any tax reduction in her proposed budget. What other issues do you see yourself engaging on during this upcoming legislative session?
So there's another big tax being proposed, and that is on liquor. And the way it was proposed last year, it's an excise tax, so it's put on at the wholesale. Then the wholesalers take, they pay that, and then it costs more for the retail, then it costs more for the consumer. And they're saying it's 25 cents a drink. It's not. It's like $4 a $7.50 of liquor. So $4 more on top of what you're already paying, with increases on top of all of those. And so it's going to be extremely expensive to drink in New Mexico. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to do with liquor taxes what they've done with the cigarette taxes. And unfortunately, alcohol is considered an inelastic commodity, meaning that people tend to buy the same amount. They just switch products and brands if prices shift. So the problem here is that they'll shift to other brands, right? Because it's too expensive for the brand they're drinking. And this is not, the people with money. This is the people with, the blue collar people. They'll switch brands. And then if it becomes too expensive, we have very cheap drugs out there. And I'm not talking about marijuana, because marijuana in stores can be fairly expensive. But there's fentanyl on the streets. And people will move to something like that, as we've seen on our streets. You don't see a lot of people with paper bags, right, drinking. What you see is a lot of people out of their minds on fentanyl. And so is this the best policy? Can we really say that this is a good policy? And do we want to be the ones to experiment with this? Already, New Mexico's liquor taxes are higher than any place, than any of our surrounding states by a significant amount. And there's people that are pushing this, and I don't think it's like that thing. This is what we want to happen. We want people to stop drinking. And so they believe that this is what's going to happen. And I guess if you make it so expensive, you could even prohibit it and people would still drink. Isn't that interesting?
It's shocking.
It's shocking, isn't it? So we have done the experiments. We do know what could happen, but we're going to try it again in New Mexico. And in the meantime, how many more people are we going to put out on the streets?
I mean, I remember the times when nobody smoked weed before that was legal, and it's amazing how that industry just supported the consumption of marijuana without, having ever been done before. Obviously, facetious jokes aside here about uh, prohibition and drug legalization, et cetera, and very much concerned, we are as well, by plans to increase alcohol taxes in the legislature. It's been something that has, like so many issues, come up in recent sessions. Again, we have one of the things that I would support along these lines, and I think you're on the same page. We've talked about it in the past. The alcohol taxes are not dedicated necessarily towards alcohol treatment. So that's a different issue. The existing alcohol taxes could, one argues, should be dedicated uh, to treating those people who have a problem, but that doesn't follow that you need a higher tax. Talk about how those taxes are allocated currently, and there have been proposals to change that, but for whatever shocking reasons, it doesn't seem like they want to do that.
Yeah, it is interesting. So, of the $50 million that's an excise tax now, right? So right now we're all paying in $50 million. Of that, 25 million goes into the general fund. 25 million goes to the DWI, billboards, stuff like that. It goes to the cities and it goes other places. None of it goes to treatment, and we're just saying use the tax to go to treatment. Let's see if that works. Let's take baby steps before we take these big, huge steps. Marijuana, same thing. That tax should be going to treatment, and so should the opioid settlement. All of that money should be going to treatment. Let's try to get a handle around the treatment before we tax this industry. And really what they're saying is that the tax from the new tax is going to go into the treatment. Well, you get $200 million more into this system that doesn't have any treatment places, and that's just going to be money wasted. Let's set this up for success. If we're going to set it up at all, let's set it up for success. And again, this is not a tax on the industry. This is a tax on New Mexicans. You're going to be paying more for every drink that you have. And is that worth it to you? Is this something you want your government doing to you, not knowing if this is actually going to work to help our situation with alcohol?
All right, yeah. And we're going to make the argument, among others, that with the budget surpluses available, that the legislature should not be increasing taxes. I realize tobacco at this point not nearly as central of an issue involving restaurants as it once was, when indoor smoking was commonplace, but tobacco taxes are also always on the agenda. So anything else for the legislature in the last few minutes that we have together?
We are actually asking for the legislature's support on an interchange fee prohibition act. So we call it, so swipe fees are fees that businesses pay in order for you to pay with a credit card. We pay these fees, the banks and the credit card companies then charge us so that you can have your points, your airline points and other things. They charge the businesses. So the businesses are paying 3 and 4% now just to swipe your card. And it depends. If you've got a really rich airline point system, then it costs more for that restaurant to swipe your card. And they don't tell you this, but we also pay swipe fees on the taxes and the tips. So the tips don't go to the restaurant owner. The tips go directly to the server. And the taxes go directly to the state. We have to pay all of that, and we pay the swipe fee on top of that. So what we're asking for is them to take the swipe fee off of tax and gratuity. And the interesting thing is just the tax alone, that would be $50 million back in the pockets of the retailers and restaurants in this state. And, I mean, here we are paying to pay the taxes. And so it's not fair. And we hope that we can strike a balance there. This has been passed in a couple of other states, and we're hoping that we can get this passed in New Mexico.
Yeah, there's a number of ways to so-called skin the cat with regard to transaction fees. One of those is to remove sales tax from swipe fees. I'm not. Is that what you're
That
talking
is.
about? Okay, so there's 9 states: Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Maine, Mississippi, North Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Washington. Other states offer a credit for essentially the cost, because every business bears a cost to their bottom line to collect taxes on behalf of the government, and other states have tax credits as well. So there's a lot of different ways to assist businesses. I know everybody listening, if they've listened before, they will be shocked to know that New Mexico is one of the states that tries to grasp for every last penny and not help businesses out, to not give them anything for their troubles. But I know you'll be trying, and we'll see how things go.
And this is not a tax credit that we're asking for.
Right,
We're
right.
asking for a law that would prohibit it, and therefore it's not coming out of our coffers. And maybe they could see their way to doing this.
But of course, heaven forbid that they did anything productive with the amount of money they have. Of course, the governor's budget did not include anything. As we record this conversation, we don't know what the LFC's budget proposal looks like. I have to admit that I was deeply disappointed by Senate Finance Committee Chair George Munoz, who also chairs the LFC. His comments that the rebates of a few years back, he claimed were wasted. Hopefully, I don't know, we can figure a way out to reach out to him and get him to understand that there's a lot of government waste out there, and they've had many, many more millions and billions of dollars than those very small, relatively small rebates that were provided. Well, we're going to have to wrap things up. But Carol, anything, if people want to sign up for your email list and maybe get engaged in this legislative session, of course, we'll be working with you as well. But any way that people can find out more about the New Mexico Restaurant Association and your work and join you in some of these fights.
Yes, absolutely. So nmrestaurants.org, you can go on our homepage and subscribe to our newsletter if you're interested in what's happening in the restaurant industry. We invite you to do that, and just stay in support of your local restaurants. Please go out, enjoy yourselves. No need to cook and clean.
All right. And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you, and of course, all of our listeners out there. Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Find all episodes at tippingpointsnm.com or at the Rio Grande Foundation's YouTube channel. Subscribe to the show at Apple, Stitcher, or tell Google Home to play Tipping Point New Mexico. Thanks to Path 3 Marketing for producing this show.